My name is Misha Bakshi. I'm a student, actress, and cosplayer living in Halifax, Nova Scotia. When I first started cosplay, it was just about dressing up and having fun. But my journey into cosplay changed me. It helped me find out more about myself than I ever imagined. I knew I couldn't be the only one. So now I'm headed out, asking other cosplayers what drives them to create and how cosplay has made an impact on them. When people ask me why I cosplay, I tell them it's because I can. At this stage in my cosplay journey, I'm always wondering, how did other people get into this fantastic world? Where did they start? What does cosplay mean to them, and how has it changed them? Today, I'm in the suburbs of Halifax to meet Scoot, my good friend who's a transgender East Asian cosplayer. I want to chat with them about their own cosplay journey and discuss what it's like to be one of the few racialized members of the Halifax cosplay community. So Scoot, tell us a little bit about how you got into cosplay.
I started getting into it around high school because I'm obviously kind of like a dweeb. But the main thing that drew me to it was I've always been kind of like an artistic child growing up, and I was kind of like a recluse. And then around when I was a teenager, we made a big move with my family that I wasn't really prepared for. So that kind of pushed me to be even more of like a bit of like an outsider, I guess, because we moved from a small community to an even smaller community. And that smaller community, unfortunately, was a little bit more rural. It was very much homogenous. There weren't very many people of color around. There weren't very many Asian folk. I really had to find something to take my mind off the fact that like I didn't have any friends. We didn't have any community around us. It was just me and my family essentially. But I really do credit cosplay a lot for helping me get through my angsty teen years. I was like a very angry teenager, especially after the initial move that I made with my family, and helping me discover like gender expression and helping me accept actually who I am now.
You mentioned that one of the things that really drew you to cosplay was feeling sort of isolated as a person of color in a mostly white homogenous community. Do you find that that's a continuing trend as a cosplayer of color in Nova Scotia?
I do, but I don't. In a wider sense, I don't, because the source of cosplay itself is from East Asia, and I, as a light-skinned East Asian person, have the privilege of feeling at least that sense of community. Individually, like when I attend like local cons, like HalCon and stuff like that, there certainly is a sense of like being othered. Happily enough, people like the community around me has been very, very good about that. But of course, like there's always going to be rampant colorism and sexism in the cosplay community, just like there is in real life. Here, it's one of those things that's really not talked about enough. And when it's brought up, people are just like jumping down your throat. And I can't imagine what it's like to be someone with darker skin or be a black, like especially a black cosplayer of color, because it is difficult to have these conversations. But as a visible minority and stuff like that, you can talk to white cosplayers. Like most of my friends are white cosplayers. I use that like, yeah, but there's just some things that you can't understand until you've been through it. Mm-hmm. So to not be able to talk about these very like these things that affect like your everyday life, that like bleed into like your hobbies and like your creative outlets and stuff like that. Yeah, it's quite draining. Mm-hmm. And just where, like I said, it's not anyone's fault. It's just the community we live in. It's the population that we have here. With you, I'm lucky enough to have you and we can talk about these things. But with us, it's like just us, I think. Like I can maybe count on my fingers like the number of cosplayers of color I know here. In Halifax. And Halifax is like the metropolitan center of Atlantic Canada.
Can you tell us a little bit about what yellow facing and yellow fishing is?
Yeah, it's pretty much like anything, like the term catfishing, where you pretend to be something that you're not, which is what we do in cosplay. But with Asian fishing and like yellow fishing, it's these folks who are like, yes, from the source, most characters from anime and manga are Asian, because that's the source material. So they'll try to dress up in a way that best mimics that, which is like super sweet and nice, the concept. But these folks are changing their face, or like I see people taping their eyes back and taping their face and stuff to make themselves look more Asian. And it's just like you don't have to do that because race is not a costume, which is something a lot of folks still do not understand, which is why blackfacing is still such a huge issue within the cosplay community. People literally don't see any problem with it. And now Asian fishing has come up with the rise of, like, obviously anime, manga, K-pop, especially people who are like, oh, I'll be liked more, I'll be more popular if I adhere to the source material, which is I'm going to protect beauty. So.
While it's important to recognize that sometimes there are difficult parts to being a member of the cosplay community, there's one thing that always makes it worth it: seeing yourself in a really cool outfit. It's time to get dressed. So here we are in our cosplays. I'm Mitsuri Kanroji from Demon Slayer.
And I'm Roxas from Kingdom Hearts. Yay! I love sitting. I love sitting.
Tell us why you decided to cosplay Roxas.
Roxas is, I love him. He's really cool. He's like this edgy, broody teenager that skateboards, and also I get to wear my flamey shoes with him. Kingdom Hearts is like a huge, huge, huge series that's near and dear to my heart. It's one of the most popular series, I would dare say, that Square Enix has put out. Like I said, when I was younger, when I made the two big moves, I reclused, and one of the big things I did was play video games, of course. And I had heard about this game series, Kingdom Hearts, and I was like, okay, well, let's try to get into that. I have a lot of free time. I have no friends. So I started playing it, and immediately in the second game, I attached to this character, Roxas. He was calm, he was cool, he was collected, and then his entire world gets turned like upside down. Everything that he knew turned out to be not real. And he really is one of those things that he had to grapple with and had to accept the changes, which was inevitable. So as a early teen who had gone through this huge upheaval of everything I knew in life, I just absolutely grasped onto that and clung to it.
So what are some things that you've learned through cosplay about yourself, about like people?
Well, first thing is people can be very, very, very mean and very rude and super callous. As I said before, I've been super lucky to not have to be on the receiving end of that. But the biggest takeaway that I've learned is literally, if you want to get into this, anyone can do it. Doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter who you are. If you want to get into it, get into anybody who else says otherwise. Don't listen to them. We do have such a white-centric cosplay community here in Halifax. Is because I feel like a lot of folks of color who also want to get into it, or a lot of people who have like larger bodies because they're afraid of what people are going to say, right? We're literally just people playing dress up for like the fun of it. There's no reason to gatekeep. There's no reason for elitism. Like, it is what it is, right? It's a great way to break out of whatever shell you had.
And I think like you're such a great example of like, you don't have to be like a master like costume crafter. You don't have to be a seamstress. You don't have to make like this whole thing by yourself. Like, it's okay to buy a costume and like find other ways to make yourself like creative.
And as someone like me who has a full-time career job, who's super busy all the time, I just don't have the time and energy to put into it. I know a lot of folks feel really bad about buying their costumes and like stuff like that, but like, I pretty much buy all my costumes.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I don't have money to get into all these things. And like, at the end of the day, as long as you're not claiming it as your own, as long as you give due where it's due, right? That's all it really is.
One of the best things about cosplay is that we can all dress up as anyone we want to, regardless of things like race, gender, height, body type, or anything really. And while for the most part, the community is accepting and open, sometimes real-life problems lead their way into our little hobby. It's important to remember, like Scoot says, that we're all just people playing dress-up, and that we should all try to be kind to each other wherever we can.
So Scoot, why do you cosplay?
Well, because I can.